Hello and welcome back to the shop. A few years ago I acquired a few RC Formula 1 cars, and as Formula 1 isn't an interest of mine, I decided to turn them into rat rods. This was the second one I made, and I really got into having the motor exposed, as you can see. Being made from a Ford Pop and a Ford Model Y body, I saw this car as English, so I gave it a petrol straight 6. However, I also wanted to do a yank because I wanted to have a go at scratch building a V8. And I decided to use the M35 truck body. This let me build a military vehicle based rat rod. And as this was based on an American vehicle, it gave me an excuse to make a V8. Later, I bought one of the same 1/12 scale military trucks in order to use the chassis for another project. And guess what? That leaves me with a spare M35 body. This time, however, I won't be building a rat rod. Owning and driving this MN168 Range Rover has made me a bit of an MN Models RTR fanboy. And so, in order to provide a platform for my new build, I've bought this. It's an MN99S V2. The V2 is important because it means it has good electronics and I won't have to spend lots of money on a new radio, ESC and steering servo. In fact, this is why I'm so keen all of a sudden on MN's range of RTRs. Suddenly every build I do is just an aesthetic change and I don't have to swap out all the electronics. I guess the first job is to get the body off this thing and have a look at what lies underneath. By the way, as I've just shown you those scratch-built engines, this is interesting. My friend Dave 3D printed this for me the other day. It's a straight 4 engine and gearbox. He downloaded it from Thingiverse for free and printed it out on a bamboo printer. He didn't know anything about printing and it just came out spot on. Good. Let's see how the M35 body fits. Well, the M35 is a big 6-wheel truck, far bigger than a Land Rover, and as expected, this cab looks a little big on this chassis. For example, nothing in the world will convince me that those tiny Land Rover tyres haven't been completely swamped and absorbed by those giant mudguards. But I hope that this shot will convince you that there is in fact method in my madness. I've removed the non-functioning fake spotlights from the front wings, as well as the smokestacks from the rear. What I need to do now is remove the interior to gain access so I can block off those holes from the inside and then fill them. This isn't a bad interior in terms of detail. I think if I pick it out, it'll look a lot better. And we'll have the usual struggle to fit a driver figure, I'm sure. I've filled the pesky holes, both in front and behind. I also had to simplify this area here to make mounting the body to the chassis easier. The cab's rear window had a vertical central division which I removed just because I don't like it. My next job is to come up with some sort of way of mounting the body. The interior got a quick and dirty paint job. As you can see, I didn't paint the seat where the driver's going to go because I think I'm going to glue him to the seat. The reason for this is simple. These figures, which are cheap, hollow, very light and non-articulated. But if he's not articulated, how do I get him to fit into the cab? The answer, I'm afraid, is surgery, and pretty unsympathetic surgery at that. With the aid of heat and a kitchen knife, I've got this guy to sit down and to extend his arms. He looks a bit more convincing when he's sitting inside the cab. I plan to glue him permanently to the seat with epoxy. I'm sure he'll look better when he's painted. I've been thinking about how I'm going to mount the body, and when it comes to the rear, I've already got an answer. There are little blocks of plastic glued into position with epoxy. I've drilled through them and they line up with these holes. When I nip the screws up gently, the body goes to just the right angle. But now, of course, I must support the front. Well, this chunk of that same cheap sacrificial plastic chopping board is going to be instrumental in supporting the front. I've bolted it to the underside of the front of the chassis, and it's screwed into a piece of wood which is glued in place here with epoxy. As this truck's going to be rolling and tumbling down the sides of hills and things, that's not strong enough, so I'm going to drill and countersink a couple of holes here and put two smaller screws into the wood. Now we can look at the back body. Ah yes, the back body. The truck we're building is 1/12 scale. I have here the back body from an M35, but it's the back body from an 1/16 scale version. And I'm going to shorten it considerably. I want the wheel arch to centre on the wheel, so I'll be shortening it by about that much. This is the first time I've had some sort of chance to see what it looks like. And I think my first order of business is going to be to get that rear bed sitting lower. I felt the outfit the driver figure was wearing was a little too garish, so I've painted him before epoxying him into place behind the seat. He's even holding the wheel with one hand, and I have high hopes for bending the other arm and getting him to hold the wheel with his other hand as well eventually. Training takes time. I've also got the front and rear body properly mounted, which means they're ready for paint. Here it is all rusty and ready for the application of some salt. Here it is all painted up. I've tried to be relatively conservative with the rust on this build, and I've glazed the windows, but ever conscious of the need to keep the weight down, I've used thin flexible celluloid. By the way, a quick comment on the matter of scale. It may seem a bit strange that I'm able to take a 1/12 scale truck cab and stick it on a 1/12 scale Land Rover chassis. The reason is that not all 1/12 scales are equal, and this WL Toys 124301 was recently tested by Carlos Núñez and found to be nearer to 1/13 scale than to 1/12. And we can illustrate that by looking at this WPL C34 hood or bonnet. As you can see, it's pretty much identical, and of course the M35's hood should be rather bigger. Here's the original body that came on this MN Models Land Rover. It's my job now to carefully harvest the LEDs. This shouldn't be a challenge, as the installation is a far cry from the usual Chinese mess of hot glue. It's a beautiful job, and it shouldn't be too difficult to take out and reinstall in the other truck. I've been thinking. I myself have no interest in keeping this Defender body. I don't want it, and I don't think I'm ever going to use it. So I had no qualms about taking the lights out of it until I actually looked at how well made it is. Check this out. Each lamp unit does 2 or 3 lights. All I have to do is take out one screw and I've got those lights. The same applies at the front. But I had imagined myself simply removing an LED from a fitting. Instead, I'd be removing this entire assembly from the body, leaving the body with no lenses or anything. Someone somewhere must want this body, even though I don't. It seems a shame to wreck it, when frankly I don't really care if my toy truck has lights or not. Another MN Models fanboy moment. Look at the detail on that headlamp lens. I did find that I needed to remove a couple of plugs from here before I was able to withdraw the body, so I'll check and see if the RC actually runs with all those things unplugged. If it does, I'll just leave the lights on the body. Oh, that's convenient. Good. We can proceed. With that decision made, I was able to go ahead and glaze the headlamps, add a bit of wire mesh and some pretend rear lights made from pill packaging. The new wheels have arrived, but they're far too big and won't go round when installed, so I've had to use these. For the front bumper, I'm using an M35 item, but a 1/16 scale one. I've stuck some tin foil to the back of the mirrors and added a jerry can, kindly 3D printed for me by my mate Dave. And you know what this means? This truck's finished. I want to see how good it is off-road. I'm so sorry, but I just cannot stand those wheels. I had to stop recording because they just look so inappropriate on this vehicle. However, all is not lost because, since I made the decision to fit them, these have arrived. They are a tiny bit smaller, but they look so much better that I just don't care. There's one small problem. These wheels use a 12mm hex and this thing uses a 5mm hex. I fitted the wheels that are on it using 5 to 12mm hex adapters, but I only bought one set and they are really jammed in there. I'm going to have quite a job to get them out. That wasn't as difficult as I had expected. The hexes came out more easily than I thought they were going to. Okay, let's try that again. Well, that went well. I was delighted by how this thing performed. All my concerns about centre of gravity seem to have been relatively unfounded. I can't wait to put it up against my other recent MN models, the Range Rover, and indeed my FJ45. By the way, if, like me, you like the looks of the American M35 military truck but don't want a big six-wheel drive thing, then you could do worse than to check out Guy's channel over at RC 3D Print Adventure. He's built a really competent WL Toys 124301. He made it look good and made it perform really well. In fact, it was seeing Guy's WL Toys M35 that made me buy my first one. Well guys, I hope you like this truck, and I hope, like me, you look forward to seeing more of it in the future. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching.